Mike Jones and Dale Matthews from badcounty.com. Mike Jones, how you doing this morning, Mike?
Pretty good.
And Dale Matthews, how you doing, Dale?
Hello.
All right, so everybody wants the same thing at this point, is to try to get public safety adequately funded and getting some sheriff's patrols back on, getting things back on track in Josephine County. What is the latest that we have out of here? I know you guys keep an eye on this in Joe County.
Well, they say that they want the sheriff funded. It's the oddest thing. Mm-hmm. It turns out that the only people who are getting up at meetings or trying to lobby the commissioners to get this done are the people, the leaders, especially of the Anti-Levy movement.
Yeah, it is kind of an odd thing because you would swear that the only people who cared were the pro-levy people. And in fairness to them, a couple of weeks ago, one of them, Jay Meredith, he's the head of SOS, stood up and, well, he's not the head, but he's the president of SOS, and he stood up and advocated for the use of road dollars because there's that special rule that allows public works money to be moved over to the sheriff's department for rural patrols. And
which sounded like a reasonable temporary solution to part of what's plaguing Josephine County public safety.
And we've done it before. 2 years ago, we did this, and it worked out okay, and it's renewable, and we're not talking about, well, we're not going to fix that pothole, so we'll put this patrolman on it, and he'll run into it. Mm-hmm. No, these are the reserves of the roads fund that are being held, well, in case we have, a big earthquake. Wait a minute. You guys all said that we're in a crisis, an emergency, we're hanging on by our fingernails.
Yeah, this is a crisis right now that we're dealing with in Josephine County. Right. And believe me, I appreciate having reserves for an earthquake. I've talked to enough people, Professor Eric Dittmer and others, I'm sure you, Mike, and Dale have done similar interviews that, there's a good chance that we're going to have the big one when the big one comes. Cancel Christmas. It's going to be tough on the road system.
Right.
But on the other hand, right now, it's the wild, wild west out there in lots of areas of Josephine County. This is a clear and present danger right now, today as we speak. Fair enough?
Hey, I'm not sure I would categorize this as the Wild West, but one thing I do know is that when we look around at these meetings and we see who's advocating and who's on the side of the sheriff, we said all along, we're not against law enforcement. Yes, you are. No, we're not.
No.
Don't be a dope.
You were against the levy process and how this was being sold, the 10% administrative cut too.
Right. We wanted to keep it out of the hands of the commissioners. And guess what? On this new thing, the commissioners are all against it, but they won't get their 10% skimmed off the top.
So what is the status then of moving some of the road reserves funding, Mike? Is there anything moving more on that, or is this pretty much a dead letter at the moment?
As it would appear in the business sessions that we've seen, they are not at all in favor of doing that. All of their commentary has been negative toward that process. It may well, they do have some leeway to change the budget up to 10% or something of what the final budget is. They have the leeway to make those changes, but it really doesn't look like they want to do it at all. And this is the interesting thing, because you may well have seen some of the videos that we put out covering the budget committee hearings.
And by the way, this is on badcounty.com, the non-commercial video website.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. And at that time, Margaret Goodwin advocated for moving $1 million from the roads fund.
And who is Margaret Goodwin for the uninitiated?
One of the people on the budget committee.
Okay.
The one person on the budget committee that was in favor of this. So she suggested it. Nobody even seconded it. But then, even after that whole process ended, more money came into the SRS's Secure Rural Schools Fund that was going to also be eligible for this movement. Another $1 million. And even after that, and this fund being at the highest level that it's been since its inception, they still will not move any of that money over.
Okay.
Yeah, so another strange thing, Bill.
All right. Now, if I could just interject here before you go to the next strange thing, because there are many strange things, okay?
Yes.
Is there a possibility that what I'm hearing here is a maybe an overt or not so overt, maybe a veiled attempt to punish Josephine County voters for having voted the wrong way. So in other words, we as the commission are not going to do anything which could potentially solve even a part of the problem right now just because.
You are not the first to postulate that theory.
Okay.
Including one of the key advisors to Commissioner Keith Heck.
Really?
Who said exactly that. The people need to be punished because they didn't vote in the right way. Well, we haven't been voting that way. We've been voting to keep it out of the hands of the commissioners for a decade. We always win this fight, and they never come up with any solutions other than, well, of course, the tax. Cheryl, just the other day, Cheryl Walker, in 3 minutes, she mentioned it about 30 times. A tax, and what about a tax?
Okay, what sort of taxes are being floated right now other than the sales tax? Last time I think I talked with you both, it was about a sales tax for Joe County.
Different kinds of taxes, including a sales tax for, shouldn't we be thinking of income tax? What about something that's not a tax, that is a tax, but we'll call it not a tax? Everything that you can possibly think of. It's mostly balanced on the backs of property owners.
Well, and the point that she made, and it was aired in a news report by KTVL here just the other day, that always the burden of covering law enforcement or whatever has been on the backs of the property owners, and that, and this is a quote from Cheryl Walker, if the people want public safety, the people are going to have to pay for it.
Well, this is true.
Right, but what she means is more taxes.
Well, there is no other mechanism in place in Josephine County, even here in Jackson County, in order to accomplish that, which is not some form of taxation. If you're not going to go with property tax, then you're going to have to come up with, then you're looking at the, fees and
right. But here's the context in which that took place.
All right.
It was the discussion over the use of road dollars. So she doesn't consider this. In other words, we're not going to move this money over.
Oh, so in other words, emergency road funding is considered a higher priority for something which has not happened yet than lack of sheriff's patrols, which is happening right now.
Almost right, except it's not emergency road funding. It's contingency funding that's sitting in the county's bank account for something that may happen one of these days.
Okay, and to be clear, this would not be what was being proposed for sheriff's patrols for funding some of this, was not to take all of it. It was only a percentage of it, was it not?
Oh, yes. From what I hear now, it's about $4.5 million that's supposed to be in this fund. So,
And how much were they proposing to move to a sheriff's patrol?
Well, the funny thing is they never proposed.
Okay, what did Godwin patrol then? Or
one time there was $1 million proposed, and that never even got a second. Then Margaret stepped up again and said, "Okay, how about 500,000?"
Okay, that'd be about 1/9 then.
Right.
11% or so of that $4.5 million. It seems like a reasonable thing to do. I mean, $500,000. I know the typical sheriff's patrol deputy is about $100,000 to equip and fund each year. That's on average. That's at least here in Jackson County.
Well, 125 is what we're figuring here.
Oh, okay, maybe
Cheryl
4 then.
Walker said, "No way, no how, not going to happen." That's it.
Mm-hmm. So the voters shall be punished until they learn their lesson. This seems to be the lesson which is being promoted.
And we had a couple of people out, a couple of older folks that were murdered in their home the other day, and we were talking with this same fellow who is an advisor to Keith Heck, and he said, just too bad that wasn't anti-Levy people who were murdered in their home.
What?
Yeah. He was sitting right next to us waiting to go into the admin session last Thursday. And while we were sitting there, and I was amazed, because we were talking about this this report that had just come out by TVL, and I was telling Dale about it and telling him who was in it. And then he piped up saying that, it was too bad that these people were levy supporters. It would have been nicer if they were anti-levy people that got murdered. I was floored.
Wow.
Well, this guy is also, Bill, this guy is not a public figure, except that you see him at the beginning and ending of all the important meetings, talking with Keith Heck, giving him advice.
I'm hoping that this is not a common theme running through the pro-levy supporters, saying, though, we hope that only the anti-levy people end up being killed, murdered, or stolen from in Josephine County. In other words, we need to punish them, too.
Common theme, the thing that's happening right now is actually what's not happening. We would see people like Scott Draper, who was in charge of CUPS, Community United for Safety. We'd see him at everything. I mean, you'd see any kind of meeting. Where is this guy? Where is anybody that said, oh, public safety is our top priority? Where are they?
Could there be a possibility that some are feeling a little dejected right about now, though?
But the only people showing up are those who said, we don't want the sheriff to get his money this way. Of course we want him to get money.
Yeah.
Oh, you're against all law. No, we're not.
So where do we go now? Because I know I was talking with Captain Dan Penland. He runs the Jackson County Jail. I had him on the air yesterday, Mike and Dale. And he was saying that, yep, part of our jail situation, our catch and release situation, is that we are dealing with a little spillover from Josephine County. You know, the wild country right now.
Oh, jeez. Now, what does that mean? They're dealing with spillover?
Well, in other words, a lot of stolen vehicle crime and such are people that are actually going and catching them in Josephine County. They're coming into our jail system. Yeah, so we're kind of we're backing up a little bit of that, or I guess there's a lot of, in other words, people will come from Josephine County, steal, cause mayhem here, go back to Josephine County, get in trouble, then we end up going and arresting them and bringing them into the Jackson County system.
Well, we meet now on a constant basis with the sheriff, and we shoot all kinds of stories with the sheriff. We just met with him yesterday. Mm-hmm. And, Mike, what did the sheriff say about what his current plans are?
Just to keep going on as usual here, I don't know how that relates to what Bill was talking about with the spillover thing there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, it doesn't at all, because I reject the premise. So.
Okay.
I don't reject the premise. I have no reason to reject the premise of Jackson County Sheriffs.
The premise, Bill.
It's... You don't have a lot of law enforcement in rural Josephine County. I know of people that live in rural Josephine County right now that don't have much service and have to try to take care of as much of it as possible, all right, on their own.
They've never had much service, and what they did was a cost-benefit analysis for each person. Probably didn't call it that, but they said, okay, what do I do? What am I going to get out of this process? How do I feel about my local government?
I get that. My reason for bringing up the Jackson County jail situation is that Josephine County's problem does not exist in a vacuum. What affects Josephine County negatively does have some effect in Jackson County also. That's why I'm not trying to say that all of a sudden you cross that line of demarcation around Rogue River and all of a sudden, everything's fine in Jackson County and all of a sudden, boom, we're in wild country.
There's something that Jackson County people can do directly to lessen your problem and to help us solve our problem.
What's that?
We have an election coming up. And if you know who's going to be running, and we do, to restore trust, to start talking about more honesty, to just stop lying to us to our face, you could say, you know what, I realize those candidates are in another place, but, I'm going to consider giving them a little help.
Now, are you officially going to run at this point, Dale?
Absolutely.
Are you declared?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who are your opponents?
On your show.
Who are your well, I know you can say that on the air, but, have you actually filed the paperwork?
No, nobody's filed any paperwork that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Who are you going to be against?
Early. It's a year and a half out.
Who are you going to be running against?
Nobody knows right now, but Mike and I are going to a meeting on Friday, and we'll know more about that.
All right.
I think there's a lot more involvement with people here in the last year or so. There's certainly been a lot more interest in what's going on. I think the pendulum is finally swinging here. And we're going to get some fiscally conservative representatives now. That's what I think. This is setting up perfect for 2016, if you ask me.
All right, because in Jackson County, we look at what's going on in Josephine County, and we have a little bit of a smugness to us, I think, sometimes. And it's like, we here in Jackson County are so morally superior. Look, they can't even fund their sheriff's patrols.
We've never noticed that, Bill.
No, I'm not. All right. Appreciate you keeping up on this, guys. And you're going to report on it, badcounty.com in the evening, 7 o'clock, right?
You know we will.
All right. Mike, thanks for the latest on that. Dale, best to you too, okay?
Thank you, sir.
All right, 753, FM 106.7, AM 1440 KMED. You're on the Bill Meyer Show.